Hello friends, this is Tisha from Meadows and Mortar by Tisha, and look at this buffet that we are going to be redoing today. This is a hot mess. Look at all that veneer coming off, the bottom drawer is broken, and this sucker is going to take a lot of work. So the first thing that I do is I bring it outside and I try to start doing some repairs. I'm just using some Bondo. This is just a two-step putty that you mix together, and I'm just trying to shape these legs on some of the gouges and pieces that are stuck out of them, trying to glue some of the wooden pieces together that have been cracked. I just use a little syringe and some glue and some clamps to do those things. And then after that, I come in with just some sandpaper and try to smooth it all down. Now, what you did not see is before this, I cleaned this really good. I mean, super good, with some Crud Cutter, and then I came in with some bleach and water because this thing was disgusting. This was in a barn. Actually, whenever I tried to get the bottom drawer unstuck, whenever I pulled it out, I fell backwards on my back. The drawer came out on top of me, and so did an old rat's nest, and it was disgusting. So you saw just now that I was coming in trying to just remove that veneer on the top of it, and I just kept chipping away at it. It took me like an hour to get all that veneer off of there. And then you're seeing me come through one final time with some more Crud Cutter and some water just to make sure that everything is good and clean. And because I had some dust and stuff from where I had tried to get all that veneer off of it. And you can see that I did put the drawer back together. I finally got it unstuck, and then I put the drawer face back on it. Then the next morning I came in with some denatured alcohol and some water. I just mixed that 50-50. And I put it into a spray bottle, and then I squirted it all over the insides of the drawers and all over the front of the piece and the back of the piece, just everywhere, completely saturated it. And then I left it out in the sun for a few hours because the piece had an odor to it, and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be stinky on me forever, and that denatured alcohol will work. Actually, vodka works better, but I don't keep liquor in the house, and I was too lazy to run to the liquor store. But if you have vodka, that is also something that works even better than the denatured alcohol to get the smells out. I also did fill out a few gouges on the front, as you can see there, with some Bondo, and then you saw just now that I took my sander and just did a nice little sand over top of everything to smooth it out. And then I'm coming in with Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer, and nope, this one is the blocking primer. This one is Paint Couture's blocking primer. I didn't need a grip on this. I'm using it just so that these tannins don't bleed through on my paint finish. Now, you're going to see me do one coat, but I actually do 2 coats on this piece just to give everything a nice, good, even base, and to make sure that those tannins are going to be locked in so that it's not going to come back through once that I put my final painted finish on here. I also find that if I don't have a vision for something, if I will come through with my primer and put it on, it really does make me have more of a vision. It makes things more clear to me to have kind of that blank canvas. Now I'm taking some molds that I had made out of black casting resin. I used Paint Couture's black casting resin and just made these different molds to go around where my keyholes are. And I just drilled the center out of them, so I'm still going to be able to put my hardware on here. But this is just going to make it look a little more fancy, and it's going to make it look a little more customized for the person that buys this. And then the edges of those pieces, I just put some little decorative pieces around the corners of them. Like I said, those are all added things that you don't have to do, but I feel like it makes things more customized and it makes it more personalized. Now, I kept going back and forth about whether I wanted to put this raised texture just on the sides or if I wanted to put it all over the piece, but I did end up deciding that I was just going to use it on the sides of it. So I come in with Paint Couture's embossing medium in that little silicone tool, and I'm just putting it over top of this stencil. Now, this stencil comes from Royal Design Studios. You can just type that in on the internet and it will pop up. They are a really good company. They have amazing wall stencils, which are perfect for furniture because of the size. They are a little bit pricey though. I think I paid like 40 some bucks for this stencil, but don't think that you have to get something that's that expensive whenever you're first starting out. There are other companies that make much more reasonable stencils, but this one is an excellent one. I've used this one many times, and I just rinse it off and keep using it. So like I said, I add that embossing medium on there, and then I can pull back that stencil, and you can see that it left that texture on the side of it. So now I'm going to start with Paint Couture's Cozy Beige, and that's going to be my main color on here, and then I'm going to add some Abyss around the edges of it and blend those together. So this Cozy Beige, it's kind of like a burlappy sort of color, and then whenever I come in with that Abyss, that's going to be just a little bit of a hint of blue to mix in with it, so it will still have a little bit of a pop of color, but this will still be quite the neutral piece. So I'm going to put this all over the front of this door. Now I'm just showing you on the door first so you can see how to blend. I'm just putting it on here, you know, making sure that it's good and covered, but I don't want to put it like super heavy. You don't want it like globbed on there, but you want to make sure that you can't see the primer underneath it. So just a nice even coat all the way across to make sure that I'm getting inside of those molds really well. It'll make things a whole lot easier if I have some paint inside of those molds before I start with my blending. Now, I don't know if you could see it or not, but I just barely added just a tiny little smidge to the tips of my paintbrush there on that Abyss. And then I'm going to take it and run it up the sides there, and then I will try to feather it all together. Now, whenever you're doing your first coat of a blended finish, this is really just laying out your colors to try to see if it's something that you like or to see if you need to tweak it a little bit. Don't freak out if you get your first coat on there and you're like, oh crap, this does not look like I imagined it to be in my head. It's okay. Let the paint dry, come back in a few hours or the next day, put another coat on it, and blend it the way that you like. It's completely okay if it's not right the first time. But you saw that I took a little mister bottle that just has some plain tap water in it, and now I'm using this big brush right here. This is one of the Kristana brushes. I will post a link in the description box that you can get this from, and I just feather it all together. Now this is a nice soft bristle brush. You want to make sure whenever you're doing blending that you're using good quality synthetic bristle brushes. What this is going to do is it's going to let all of your paint meld together nicely. You can see I'm going up and down, back and forth, side to side. I'm doing some diagonals, and then if I need to, then I'm wiping off the excess onto a rag, or on this case I'm doing it on that rug underneath there, and that just gets that excess blue paint off of there. If you realize that you have took too much of one color off, it's okay. Grab a paintbrush and add more to it. As long as the paint's still wet and it's still malleable, then you can keep working with it. Now, if the paint starts getting sticky and it's not getting reactivated with water, if you try to mist it, then you may want to let it dry completely and then come back and then do another coat over top of it to blend it how you want. Because sometimes if you try to work it too much whenever it's still like starting to dry and it's getting sticky, then you can just cause more problems. So then I'm going to come in and do the same thing on all of the other drawers and on the legs, and then once that my texture on the side is dried, then I will come through with paint over top of that. You want to make sure that that texture medium is dried all the way, because if you don't, then you're just going to be dragging around a big soupy mess with big white chunks in it. So please make sure that's dry before you try to paint over top of it. I typically like to wait about 12 hours before I paint over top of those, but that's just my personal preference. So remember, I took the veneer off of the top of it because it was completely trashed. So all that I have is this rough lumber underneath it, and I'm just going to take some wood filler and I'm just going to fill in some of the bigger chunks. And that's just so that whenever I lay my new veneer top down on top of it, it's going to have a smooth surface to attach to, so I'll have less bubbling on there. And like I said, I'm just doing this for the bigger holes. This piece, you saw that it was a disaster, so I'm just trying to give it, you know, the smoothest base that I possibly can for it. Now, I have my veneer on here. Now, I used some contact cement, and I forgot to push record whenever I was doing that part, but I took some contact cement and then I just used a paint roller and I rolled it all over the top of that piece, and then I also rolled it over the back of my veneer, and then I let that dry for about 45 minutes, and then it gets sticky to touch. And whenever you take the contact cement and touch it to more contact cement, then it's going to adhere on there. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm just using a tool, just a scraper tool, to adhere this on there so that I can have a new veneer top. Now, I had to do this in a couple different pieces. I didn't have a large enough piece of veneer to go all across the top of this, but it did turn out beautiful. These are walnut veneers that I'm using. This is from a company that I found on eBay. There are a bunch of different companies that you can get them from. I know a lot of people buy from Rockler. I don't have a Rockler near me. I'm on the East Coast, and shipping was a little bit outrageous for them, but this is what it ended up coming out as. So you could see I left the lip of the original on there, and the color was just a little bit different. So you see whenever I wet that veneer that I placed on there, it's got more brown tones in it, and the edges of it has more of like a red tone. So I come in with Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Glaze, and I'm just gonna put that all over the lip of this. Now this is a water-based product, so I use some water to saturate that first, and then I'm taking that glaze and putting it over top of the water, so it's going to absorb down in there evenly because that water has already got down into those pores. So I just put a nice even coat over top of all of the lip of this, and hopefully this is going to tone it out a little bit more to where it's going to look a little bit closer to that veneer. So here I'm coming in with my clear coat. I'm using Paint Couture's Extreme Guard. So you can see whenever I put that on top of my veneer how much closer that color is now that I have the lip of it done with that Van Dyke Brown Glaze. Because even though this veneer looks nice and light right now, once that I put a top coat on it, and I have to top coat it, once that I put that top coat on, it's a completely different color. It's a beautiful walnut, and the edges of it were not, so I was just wanting to make sure that I'm trying to get this as cohesive as possible. Now this Paint Couture Extreme Guard, I end up using 2 coats on this, and I tried to let it dry. I think I did like 6 or 7 hours in between each coat on this. So I started off with 2 coats, and then I ended up doing 2 coats at the very end. So I had 4 coats of this on the top of it. So hopefully it'll be nice and protected, and this will be able to last a family a lifetime once they get it. And if you would like to try any of the Paint Couture products or the Crestana brush, I will post a link in the description box for those, and it will take you straight there to the site that you can get those. It costs you no extra money to use my affiliate link. It just lets Paint Couture know that you used my link to purchase their products and that you found their products through me, and they just give me a little thank you for that. So now I'm going to come back in to do my second coat of my blended finish. I'm using the same 2 colors that I used before, and I did not show it, but what I did do is I misted this lightly with some water before I started, just all over the whole piece, just to help my paint glide a little more, because this is a chalk style paint. So this is going to be a little bit grippy inside of there. So you can see I'm heavier on the outside and lighter on the insides of it, and I'm just wanting to make sure that I'm getting a good base on here so that I can bring that blue in as well, so that I can blend it all together. Now this right here is not going to be necessarily for coverage. This is just going to be my final coat to help me blend it all together. So on the side of it right here, I tried to bring more of that blue in because I didn't like the way that I had the blue down just mainly towards the feet. So you do see me bring that up a little bit more in this second coat. And that's what I was saying earlier. If you don't like the way that your blended finish is on your second coat, or if you even need a third coat, that's whenever you can come in and really perfect the way that you're wanting it to look. And as you can see, I'm trying to get down in those grooves for where that texture is. I want to make sure that it really looks like a nice, clean, finished piece once that I'm done with it. So I'm taking that beige color and I'm bringing it down into the blue. I'm taking the blue, bringing it up into the beige, and I'm coming back in with that Crestana brush for my blending, and I'm just toggling back and forth between the two. Now this brush right here does not have anything on it. It's completely dry, remember that. This one is just for blending my colors together, and you may see me wiping it on the rug underneath me to clean it off, but then you can see I didn't have enough blue. It was, muddying up too much. So then I bring the blue back in, and then I feather it together, and then you'll see me bring the beige back in, and then I'll feather it back together. And this is one of those things that it's really fun to just experiment with and toggle back and forth. Now at the bottom of it, I'm just wanting this to be sort of like a smoky sort of finish. So I'm actually not adding any more blue to this. This is just the blue that's on here that's left from where I was trying to do the legs. and I'm just dragging that up through my texture, and I'm dragging it through the bottom of my piece, and I'm just using that residual on here to bring that through. And on this other round brush that I'm bringing through, this is also just residual blue, and I am just taking my hands and I'm holding this very lightly, and I'm just barely skimming the top of this so that it's hitting where my texture is. It's just hitting the peaks of that so that I can really show the contrast between the flat parts and the textured parts. And I come in sort of around all of the edges of it too, to really frame it in so that you can see that nice contrast. And I'm coming in with that same brush to feather everything through. Now on this one, you will see me go side to side and up and down, but I am trying to mainly focus on going in an up and down motion because I want this to sort of look like a drippy effect. And you can see that I am using water to help separate that paint and to make it more of an actual authentic drippiness on here. I'm wanting this to look aged. I'm not wanting this to be like a nice, beautiful, like ombre blend. I'm wanting this to look a little more abstract and a little more worn. So I come in with that same brush, that same blue brush, and I've still not added any more blue to it. This is still just the residual parts, and I'm just barely hitting the top parts of the molds around where my keyholes are and around where the edges are, just to really highlight the differences in the inside of the mold and the outside of the mold. And that really does make it pop whenever you do little accents like that. And something that I do on almost every piece is I add some sort of decorative waxes on here. So I'm using black wax. This one is from Annie Sloan, but there are many companies out there that make black waxes. I like a firmer wax, so that's why I'm using this one. And I just take a little bit on an artist brush, and then you saw me put it inside of those grooves on the outside areas. And then I take a big, fatter, fluffier brush, and then I just kind of work in swirls around everything. And that's just going to smudge everything out a little bit to give me like a smoky effect. So I'm putting this around where all of the keyholes are, anywhere that there are any accents. I'm just wanting to make sure that I'm giving those things good definition. And this is one of those steps that some people miss. They don't do little stuff like this, but it really can make the difference between somebody being like, oh yeah, that's a cute piece, and somebody being like, oh wow, that looks like a professional piece. So always try to set yourself apart. Do these extra steps. Yes, doing waxing like this takes time, but it's worth the effort in my opinion. Now I use the black wax for that other part. Now I'm using dark wax. This is also from Annie Sloan. This is like a dark brown. And I'm going to use this on a big, fat, fluffy brush, and I'm going to put this around the edges of everything to sort of make like a vignette around the piece. And this is another one of those things that's nice and subtle that people may not see with the naked eye, but you really can tell the difference between a piece that has it and a piece that doesn't. Now notice that I am using very, very small amounts of wax on this. The manufacturer says to use wax last. I know that I'm putting it on raw paint, and now I'm coming in with my top coat. I'm using Paint Couture's Extreme Guard on this. But where I'm using so little of the decorative wax, and the way that I buff it out whenever I use that big fat fluffy brush, there's so little of the wax on there that I've never had an adhesion problem. But if you don't feel comfortable with that and you feel like you need to reverse those, then you can do that. Do your top coat first, and then you can add your black wax. Now I'm coming in with some silver gilding wax on top of all of my accents, and as you can see, I tried out these knobs. I did not like them. It's not the ones that I ended up with. I ended up with these beautiful crystal knobs, but here is my final project. And can you believe that this is that same piece that was getting ready to go into a burn pile? I mean, holy guacamole, that thing was a mess whenever I first started. And this looks so beautiful and regal, and I am so stinking proud of this. And I had never done veneer work like this before, and it's one of those things that's a lot harder than it looks like on TV. And I'm just gonna have to keep practicing, and I'm excited to add, a new tool in my toolbox. And hopefully I'll just continue getting better and better with this. And I hope that you guys learned something. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, I just want to ask that you subscribe to it. And guys, stick around next time, and I can't wait to see you all. Bye.